The OECD, uh, on October 2021, they led this initiative to have a global corporate minimum tax of 15%. Um, and they've implemented it now in 136 countries that have agreed to the plan to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development to implement the 15% global tax. Some 4 countries are yet to sign up. This is off Wikipedia: Kenya, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. So it seems like a lot of countries have signed up. If you look at the map, it's almost all green. And the reason that I'm interested in this year is that Kuwait all of a sudden swiftly decided to just overnight, kind of, with a month or two notice, implement this. Dubai and UAE had a 9% global minimum tax. And this is on multinationals, by the way. So I think it's like a minimum revenue of 800 million per year. So you have to be a rather, I mean, in the terms of global companies, that's small, but relative to local businesses or local individuals, that's rather large amount of revenue. So this isn't really going to hurt small businesses around the world. This is for multinational corporations doing business in multiple countries that they should have to pay their fair share. What do you guys think of this initiative?
Okay, I can think about this way. Um, I think the big companies will watch how it works. If it doesn't work and it's easier to just shut down the business in this country and move somewhere, they just hire Deloitte or someone else, said, hey, could you please calculate how many profits, dollars, anything we will get if we stay in this country in these circumstances? And just a business. They just shut down if it wasn't profitable and will not be profitable in future. That's
I
like,
think that's the idea of making the tax global, though, is that if all the countries agree to the 15%
but
minimum,
could it be like a monopoly? Like it's like, is it fair for the businesses? Like, hey. Anyway, it's always be Bahrain, yeah. The zero. Where is it? The
but
zero.
Bahrain is also doing the 15%. They've agreed
Oh
to it. So
my.
so it's,
Hmm.
it's in all countries except for the 4 that I listed, Kenya, Bangladesh, and whatever.
Sri
It's
Lanka.
like all, yeah, Sri Lanka, all major
Mhm.
countries, US, all of Europe, most of Asia, even most of Africa, most of South America, Australia.
Okay, rise prices, and then, dear
Yeah.
customers, it's not our fault. It's a
Yeah.
policy. We should pay taxes. Oh, sorry, this is like your something. Shampoo will be plus 10 something percent.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the impact will be because a lot of these countries have implemented it starting last year, just looking at the dates. And so it's like this is just starting to be implemented around the world. We have like 1 year of history on it so far. So it's like, okay, raising prices. I question the transfer of that much money from private multinationals into the hands of governments. Like, okay, maybe if you put more money into the hands of the US government or the UK government or even some Western European governments, that might kick down to the people and have create economic benefits. But Thailand implemented it, nothing against it, but I mean, some countries that might be corrupt, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
Hungary, which had a right-wing uh, presidency not too long ago. I'm sure you know a lot more than about me than that, Elena.
Hey.
You know, I see, for example, Russia's on the list. Okay, so
Oh,
China's on the list, India, some controversial leaders over there. Is that really going to benefit the people? The 15% is going to go to the government. Is that really going to trickle down?
I was just thinking about how it helps the United States repatriate money, because a lot of these companies would
Yeah.
set up shop elsewhere, so they take advantage of zero taxation. And now the whole U.S., the Trump philosophy is how to bring money back in and bring companies back. And he did it in his first term, where he let them repatriate money. And I think Apple, everybody started bringing their monies back, and it helped the U.S. economy. So I always think that's an interesting thing for the United States when it's a
mm-hmm.
level playing field now.
And for the currency, like you mentioned, if they're repatriating all these assets, the dollar is going to strengthen. So you're going to have currency imbalances, fluctuations that happen as a result of these, you know, the impact of these kind of laws is like kind of far reaching. I'm not sure that they've thought these things through. Like what happens when, for example, McDonald's leaves certain areas, or uh, even not just restaurants, but say shipping companies. Like this applies to like FedEx and UPS and DHL. What happens to shipping prices, freight cargo? I don't know. I was surprised because Kuwait in particular is, and the GCC in general is known to be a no tax region, and they're kind of becoming a low tax region. And I was just very surprised that it was just like an edict, like, okay, 15% overnight. Like, oh, whoa, that's a lot. You know, um, uh, a lot of companies are going to change the way they do business like significantly. This is a small country. So it's going to have kind of a big impact, I would imagine.
Yeah, so it's funny. The BRICS nations were trying to set up their own counter to the U.S. dollar, and it was like getting a lot of headway and movement until Donald Trump came in and said, anybody who does that, I'm going to give you a tariff of 100% or something. So now they all backed off, including
Yeah.
India, that said, no, we're good. We love the U.S. dollar. So it's all this stuff keeps moving in the background, and you're right, it impacts everything. And at the end, yeah, I think everybody pays for it, right? They're not going to just
Yeah.
absorb it, or yeah. So interesting.
So I wonder when we will see the first results. Half of the year, first quarter of this year, end of the year 2025. So when the prices will be super high. Because I don't see it the other way, or just shut down the business or raise the prices. That's all. How you can cover it. Or you will hire, okay, salaries. You can raise prices and, decline the salaries. Employees will hurt also. You cannot give enough for your employees. Quality, definitely, of your product. If you need to pay, you need to save some money.
Arguments for the global minimum tax: prevents tax avoidance and erosion of tax bases. I can understand that. Promotes fair competition, increases revenue for public services. That's what I was questioning. Is it really going to go to the public services? Enhances global economic stability, TBD. Supports developing nations. I was questioning that. Encourages corporate accountability. Olena questioned that. She was saying, well, what if they just shift it to Kenya or Sri Lanka, right? Um, Arguments against: sovereignty concerns, um, challenges for small economies. That's what I was saying with Kuwait. Complex implementation, yeah. Potential for reduced investment, impact on businesses, risk of double taxation, where the same income is taxed in multiple jurisdictions. Um, Possible inequity in revenue distribution. So you can see, I don't know. I see more red flags than green flags.
I still don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell right now. I think it's. I think like trying to level the playing field everywhere, and I don't know who they are actually. Like the OECD, uh, like what kind of what kind of strength or pull they have to implement this. But it seems pretty. Everybody signed it, so interesting, right?
Hmm.
And it wasn't sent to public, like each government sovereignty. It wasn't sent to each government to talk to the people to say, it was just implemented, right? Is that how it worked?
It's
The
like a
OECD,
global government. It's like a future anti-utopia something. So global government, and they decided to have global rules, global
yeah.
restrictions for everyone.
Yeah, I feel like there's a bit of a utopian slant to it.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
One world, and it's kind of like one world ruled by who? Like the
Yeah.
OECD, to answer your question, is, mostly the Western powers, like the US, the UK, most of the Western and Northern European countries, Turkey, Israel, what you would expect, France, Germany, Finland, Denmark, Japan, Italy, Canada, right? Australia. So, mostly the white, predominantly English, or, whatever, Western European language speaking countries in the world are proposing this. And it's up to the other countries whether they sign on or not. Up till a few months ago, Kuwait had not. And now, due to the political changes, now there's a so-called, a stronger, let's call stronger leadership that can decide. And they decided, the leadership decided 15% starting January 1. And the UAE was also, they're basically following the suit of UAE. Yeah, I question, the potential benefits to the smaller nations in particular. I mean, the part about enhances economic stability, I see a lot of instability. I see that everyone's going to have to kind of shuffle cards and change roles and change ownership structures, to try to get around. Because now what are they all going to do? They're all going to go hire their corporate lawyers and accountants and tax attorneys and try to evade it as much as they can and write down as much of it. So like that's all that's going to happen, right?
It's a hard topic because it just happened. We don't see the consequences. We can just suggest what can be. Who knows? Maybe this was the reason and really it was a good solution. Maybe it's a burst economy for anyone globally to unify everything. And you can be sure, okay, I pay taxes here the same. And if my company also will have some branch in another country, I will pay the same and don't need to recalculate it according to that law because law is the same. It's like supposed to be easier for multinational, multi-countries corporations, like the same everywhere. Like you're using currency euro in Europe, so you don't need to change it. So
Yeah,
maybe
I
the
think
same is here. They're like, okay, the same 15%. I know what to expect at the end of the year for profit. So the same rule. Maybe this was an idea to make it simpler for businesses.
and I wonder what the incentive shifts will be like. Okay, like if you're talking about income taxes for people, you have a flat tax, which is considered regressive because, for example, sales tax. If you impose a 10% tax on all the goods and services that people buy, that disproportionately affects poorer people because they have, 10% of someone's income who makes $20,000 a year. It's a lot harder on them than someone that makes 2 million. So flat taxes are generally considered regressive. This seems like a flat tax. It's not on people, but it's on businesses. A 15% level. They want to level the playing field, but it's going to, just like if you think of businesses as people, certain businesses are going to be unfairly affected by this, I feel, because then where's the incentive? If you help me out. You see where I'm going with this? I'm making an analogy between income taxes and business taxes, but I feel like it's a flat tax and it's like, well, not every country is created equally. Some countries have better infrastructure and talent to pull from and should tax at different rates than other countries that are still industrializing or still developing. Zvar?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to. So it's funny when in order for a company to pay out dividends, they have to show a profit. So there's this weird pull when you have a corporation that you want to minimize your taxable net EBITDA, but at the same time, you need that if you're a public company, you need to show profit, right? So you can pay dividends, so you can pay out whatever you got to do. So it's a catch-22 sometimes. Like you got to reduce. You got to, like you were saying, the accountants will show up and figure out ways to reduce your taxable net, but at the same other way, you have to show a significant amount if you're running a certain type of company. So, I mean, I think that there are going to be offsets as well. I think Kuwait and all these countries are going to have some other incentives to keep businesses there, keep them profitable. Uh, I don't even know. They might have another form where they. I was always thinking about Donald Trump, and they keep saying that they're going to bring it. They're going to tariff, and it's going to impact everything. But if that's going to cause prices to increase in the United States and impact the consumer, and his mandate is to make life more affordable, he could punish those companies who will just put that into their cost of doing business, it will increase prices, but then there's some kind of offset that he might offer the average person that somehow will wash that out. And that's what I always think. There's more levers you could pull right now, and yeah,
This is why I question the efficacy of the tax, because the benefits to the people is saying the OECD estimates that the policy will reduce undertaxed profits by around 80%, applying across geographies. Okay, so it's definitely going to increase tax revenue. Like, we can agree that when you implement this, tax revenues for governments will go up. How do they spend it? How do they spend that? Where's the oversight, right? That's the issue. I feel the key issue is okay, there's gonna be, like, you're basically taking money from the hands of some people who are doing profitable businesses, and we know what the outcome is. Okay, there's some bad actors, there's some bad companies that treat people wrongly, but overall, the drive globally toward corporatization and capitalism has lifted millions and millions of people out of poverty, and we've had less wars in the last 40 years, Elena. Your situation notwithstanding, but if you look on a graph of it, it's compared to the 20th century. We're in a playground. It's been nothing. We're in easy sailing, and modern war is much kinder than, for example, World War II or World War I or the Civil War. If you look on historical graphs, we're living in some of the best times ever, objectively. Of course, we can do better as humanity. We could get to zero. But the point is, you're taking money out of the hands of people that have proven to make the world somewhat of a better place. I guess that's debatable, and putting it in the hands of some governments, which some of them might implement what's right and good, and some of them might not.
Okay, I can add here, talking about war. We have a current moment, a lot of weapons, so dangerous, so massive, that you cannot imagine that you can, in 1 second, kill like millions of people. You cannot do it in the Second World War. No, it's like the biggest bomb and anything couldn't do it. But right now we have chemical, biological, etc., nuclear, and everything that can kill at the same very fast and a lot of people. So I cannot think. And maybe these wonderful taxes will be used for defense. So countries will use it to make their like more powerful everything. Build new missiles, build new tanks, build new drones, AI, robot, killer, everything. Because they say, oh my God, we have crazy neighbors, surrounders, everything. Better to be prepared right now. And Kuwait the same. You have some crazy neighbors not far from you.
I hope they don't pour these revenues into defense. That's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, if the governments take this revenue and they build infrastructure, they build healthcare, they build schools, they improve their ports, they improve their airports, they improve their international trade infrastructure, etc., their pensions, whatever, yes, that is great. How many countries do you know that are doing things that are like that around
I
the
can
world?
say
Like, minimum.
my experience in my country, when Zelensky was elected, he said, okay, new roads, building infrastructure, everything. And even forgot about that we have like war from 2014. So we didn't spend enough. And then it started this big invasion. It was, oh my God, please, somebody give us everything. We don't have much to protect ourselves. Because he started his cadence from, okay, schools, hospitals, roads, people, pensions and everything, but nobody expected. That's why. And maybe for current situation, when they have war there, here, Afghanistan, something strange there, who knows what is inside. And maybe it's like, okay, we should be prepared for some surprises. So,
yeah, now you have to rebuild all the infrastructure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's still damaged. It's not like a stop. It's still like broken. Every day something has happened. So we rebuild something that's happened.
And it's destroyed.
But
Rebuild, destroy.
it's
Yeah.
destroyed. And you see, when you like a country, we're a big country, so territory is a big one. So we need a lot of defense systems to protect whole country. And if you have money, you're thinking, okay, where I should, in a good world, you think, yes, roads, hospitals, schools, people. But then you're thinking, how can I protect my people if I don't have weapons? I should ask European countries, US, everyone, please, please, hello, help, etc. So it's tricky. You don't know. You understand you should care about people, but defense, it's also care about people.
I was just looking at the corporate tax rate in Canada. It's like about 26.5%. So that's like way above.
Yeah, I thought it was 22 or 20. It depends, I guess. Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
that's the game, right? If you're going to pay a quarter of your profits in tax, then you reduce your your net profits by increasing expenses, but at the same time you need to show that, right? You need to pay out dividend. My whole thing is about war itself and how war is different, like today than war has been in 100 years or 50 years. I mean, I think it's like philosophical differences, but I also think war before was you had scarcity of resource and that country had it, so you physically have to go there and take it. Now you've got countries that participate in a business way, like Russia owns assets, right? China has treasury bills. They don't need to invade anymore because now you can do battle and get the resources in another way. And that's why I think sometimes war today is just impractical. I don't think anybody wants, other than this war in the Ukraine right now, which has to do with NATO and the West and Russia for the most part, and Israel, that's another one. It's about territorial war, and it's a religious war in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
most people don't want to fight because why would I fight? Like even North Korea, everybody's like scared of North Korea, and why would he want to lose what he's got? He's got wealth and money, and so why risk it? So I think war is more complex today. It's not as simple as before, and I don't think anybody wins today's war because you got a lot to lose. Even the poorest country has assets that they're okay holding on to. So there's my commentary on war.
Yeah, it's interesting. The effects of the war in Russia, the US and Western nations tried to place a embargo basically on Russia to prevent their oil from, and it didn't stop them. They've been selling their oil just fine, baby. Right. So it's in the past, like you're saying, that would have not happened. And that's another question I have about this global minimum tax is like, okay, this is good in theory, but this only works if everyone's cooperating. What happens in times of war, in times of, despair and famine, et cetera? Do these agreements still hold? What happens when somebody pulls out of the agreement? If all countries agree to this kind of not just global minimum tax, but any kind of policy like this, even the UN would apply it. It's like, okay, the UN is, it's a great ideal. It's very idealistic, but in reality, whatever the US says goes. The US can just veto and frequently does veto what you talk about Israel, frequently does veto whatever the council says. And they just, look at the Iraq war. They were just like, nah, we're gonna flip you off. We're going in anyway. So it's what credence do these global kind of idealistic agreements have when you have actors in the world that are going to violate them? For example, if one country pulls out, let's say France pulled out of this global minimum tax, then all the corporate profits would rush into Paris and to get a tax benefit, not because people are bad, but because that's how capitalism works. It's like gravity. It's like, water flowing down a wall or dropping a ball off a cliff. It's, you lower the rate in one place and the capital is going to flow there. It's just like a law of gravity, law of finance.
Talking about these changes and investment. So let me, Joseph, it's for you because you're interested in investment. How do you feel? Should we invest in these big companies? Is it time or just wait because the taxes is rising and maybe it's not a good time to invest, or just better wait and don't invest in these companies because they need to rise prices and everything, and maybe it will be that some influence on their
Okay.
profit?
Chat GPT, I asked it. It's okay, positive and negative impact. So it's saying
Well done.
levels the playing field. Yeah. So I can see that it levels the playing field by incentivizing smaller and local businesses, increase revenue for governments. Now I said, how do they use that revenue is the question. Reduce pressure to lower local taxes. Local governments might feel less pressure to lower corporate tax rates to attract. Okay. So yeah, so you could see how taxing the big companies creates an advantage for the smaller companies locally. Actually it de-incentivizes companies from going global and going multinational is what they're trying to do. But what I'm questioning is you're taking that power of global reach and putting it in the hands of governments now.
Hmm.
As we were, and that naturally that led us to talk about defense spending and war,
Oh my.
right?
And I think it maybe is it time invest to small middle businesses which like the same on the same field with multinational, thinking, oh, because they will pay more taxes, they don't have time to everything. Maybe we can invest in small for the beginning and to buy some parts or invest, be a shareholders and then win from this. So is it time for this investment, this type of investment? To pay
Yeah,
attention to the smaller
that's the
businesses.
intent. I think that's definitely the intention of the people who are writing the policy is to have benefits like that. But like
Mm-hmm.
some of the downsides, they say there could be indirect tax increases. So governments might adjust their local policies to make taxes for small businesses higher to balance out the playing field. Um, change shifts in supply chains. So you can see how this would disrupt supply chains, increase costs passed down. We talked about that. They might raise your price at McDonald's or Starbucks or whatever. Competition for limited resources. So yeah, it's I feel like it's taking a step back. It's like we've figured out how to make these multinational entities that are able to operate across jurisdictions. Like there's really great benefits to that. If I'm traveling in the Philippines where I'm not sure about the quality of the food, I know I can get a cheeseburger or whatever at McDonald's, and I don't know why I keep coming back to McDonald's. Maybe I'm hungry, but I know that the quality is consistent, and right, it's
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
restaurants. It applies to everything. I know
I
that if
did the
I need
same. I
something,
did the same.
yeah,
And when you're in a new place or you don't have enough money you want to spend in some other way, in Switzerland, for instance,
yeah,
I get my lunch in McDonald's because I
yeah.
need to spend some time in museum, etc., etc. So I think, okay, if I need use my budget to some other way, I can say something in McDonald's.
Yeah, or it applies to everything. If I need to ship something, I know that DHL or UPS or whatever is operating globally is going to get it there on time. If I'm, that Microsoft products or Apple products that they're going to operate Samsung, whatever, across the globe the same. So there's huge benefits to these multinational entities in the way that they lower switching costs, they create synergy and not just inside their companies shared resource, but synergy for the users, for the consumers, right? And if you take all that, if you level the playing field with this tax, you kind of take some of that away because you're de-incentivizing that behavior. You're incentivizing local competition, uh, um, right? I see it as problematic in some ways. I can see the benefits. It's like I see the good intentions, but some of the worst things have been done with the best of intentions.
I think it's gonna settle where it needs to settle, and I think they're trying to level the playing field because they don't they I think with when you have all these countries complaining that there's unfair advantages for other countries, they just want to set one bar so everybody can kind of operate the same way, and then I think you're going to see competition be more. You'll still have it, but it'll be a fairer competition because you're not going to have somebody has an unfair advantage over you because of some local philosophy on taxation. I mean, I think it still is going to force companies to be good and better. I think it's still going to, it's going to make you be more efficient. Maybe some companies will start to break up their assets so they're not 800 million, right? You can have four different $200 million companies
Yeah.
Yeah, so that but that eats away at efficiency. But then again, maybe it creates jobs. Maybe so it's going to be I think survival of the fittest is always the case, no matter what. And with the new rules, I think you just have to figure out a way that how to be great at it again and make a lot of money and save taxes and all of that stuff. So
That's interesting. You mentioned uh, survival of the fittest. They're saying about the breaking the companies up into four different 200 million, revenue entities. The analysis in Kuwait was the same thing, is that, well, they're probably going to have shifts in ownership structures in local companies. Basically what you just said. And you're mentioning evolution. I was thinking of that quote from Jurassic Park where he says, life finds a way. And I'm like, corporate tax attorneys will find a way. They will find a way to make the money efficient, to get it broken up in exactly the right way to pay the least amount of tax to optimize. And maybe you're right. Maybe the way that you're talking about it, it seems like maybe nothing will change. Maybe it'll be business as usual and just the structures of things will change. And I hope that's the idea. I can see how 15% of revenue on corporate entities in the wrong hands of the wrong government could lead to like huge problems. Maybe I just don't trust government enough.
so give me a specific government that you think that this is that you have concerns over.
Oh, we
Okay,
can ask ChatGPT corruption, a list of corruption,
Yeah.
and just overlap two lists.
yeah, I mean, Russia is instigating a war. Um, you know, like as far as being selfish, whatever. China, the biggest competitor to the United States. If if you increase the tax base of a country, okay, like let's take India. Like he is, trying to increase the energy production in India, but he's not using the cleanest, methods. He's trying to use oil and coal, and I think nuclear, and it's kind of controversial from an environmental standpoint. Whatever you believe about the environmentalism of that, uh, you're going to amplify his efforts by doing concentrating more money and power in his pocket. Um, and okay, that's not problematic if you agree with the policies in those countries. If you're sitting there in India or China, it's the opposite. You have the opposite point of view of what I just said. Well, you're putting more money in the United States Treasury to pay out for more defense spending and more bases around the world. So it it's how you use it. I'm concerned of when you're taking you know power from you know what's already kind of a competitive level playing field. Um, I don't know. You take it. It's not a free market, but it's more of a free market than government competition. If I just see that living here, the abuse and waste in the public sector, and the corruption, and even I mean, we all know about what Doge, right? Department of Government Efficiency, right? So, right, how are you gonna?
Yay, Doge made it. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, but as you were saying it, I just started to understand your concern, but then I start to see this philosophy about the rich getting richer and how this in its best light is about taking like don't letting these multinational companies show up and not pay taxes, but to keep it in the country that they're if you think back to like the old manufacturing days when they used to get cotton from India, they would ship it to the northern mills of England. They would forbid the Indians from purchasing like their own clothing and force them to buy these shirts from the northern to promote production in Britain. Um, and that's always been like at the colonial way. It's like how to take the resources, profit and create jobs, and then sell it back into the same country you took it from, or whatever. Not took it from, but got the resources from. So I
Absolutely,
mean,
yeah.
maybe yeah. So that's maybe this is a tonic to that, in its best light, right?
It's a tricky topic. It's really like we can suggest that something happened, but don't know exactly. And maybe at the end of first quarter of the year, we will see results.
So here's who stands to hurt the most: countries with small open economies relying on foreign direct investment. So obviously, like Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Luxembourg, Ireland, Singapore, Switzerland, and they list also the UAE. Um, so these places will be the most affected. Um, and then small developing countries, which they list a few that haven't signed up yet, Bangladesh and Kenya. That's probably why they haven't signed up, because they'll be the most affected. And it's like, yeah, this isn't going to change much in America or Australia or the UK or, Germany or whatever, but it's going to have a big impact on the way multinationals operate in these smaller countries like
Yeah.
Kuwait,
Yeah.
like the UAE. Yeah. So I feel like you're externalizing the downsides into the small countries. And like you were saying earlier, oh, where it's a colonial kind of relationship. Well, we force you to give us the cotton and then we sell it back to you. I feel like this is like the modern day version of that. And it's just it's cloaked in, tax policy that's tricky to understand. We're three MBAs batting it around and we're kind of like, is it good? Is it bad? It's just, it the list of countries that are impacted are not the big ones. They're not the ones proposing it. It's not France and Sweden and America and Australia and New Zealand. Those aren't the ones that are going to suffer. They have big, diversified,
Mhm.
robust economies that promote healthy competition inside, and right? It's going to be Kuwait, Kenya, Bangladesh, UAE, Vietnam, small African countries. Those are going to be the most affected by this. Um, that's why I question it so much, and also just for the sake of fun, academia.
Academia. Yes.